Jacksonville-based author Tim Gilmore's latest tome, The Culture Wars of Warren Folks, is a critical biography of a self-avowed white supremacist who ran for office in the 1960s through the 90s. He's here now with more on the book and how it ties to present day. Tim, hello, hello, hello.
Hey, Al, it's so good to see you again.
It's good to see you too, man. It's been a minute.
It has.
So this is your 23rd book.
Yeah. I can be a little obsessive, but
I think that's kind of an understatement at 23, man. That's a lot.
there's a lot of stories out there.
I feel like such a slacker. Like
No.
I got ideas for books and like, nope, they're not getting done.
You know what? I just have to say real quick. I love listening to you and Andrew, and whatever you have done and wherever you have gone, you have always been good to our hometown. So, I just wanted to say that.
Thank you very much, and
Yeah,
I'll make
man.
sure you get that check.
Right.
So, I kind of remember Warren Folks, but not. I just remember the name,
Right.
but I don't remember like who he was. So please tell me, who is Warren Folks?
Yeah. So and I had heard of him, and there's a chapter in Rodney Hurst's book, his first book. The chapter is just called Warren Folks. But I had kind of forgotten about him. And then last November, I was researching book bans in Florida from back in the day.
Why would you do that?
Yeah, I wonder. Well, that's the thing, is so much of Warren Folks' story is frighteningly similar to a lot of what's happening right now. So I was researching these, and I found Warren Folks when he was, this was 1970, he was offended that the library had a Mickey Spillane novel, and he made a big to-do about it, and this will sound familiar, he called for all funding to be canceled for the Jacksonville Public Library System until every book in the library system had been screened, which got no traction, but so many of his ideas, and he was as, honestly, vicious and extreme as you can imagine, but so many of his ideas actually have kind of a mainstream place now.
Well, now, like it's like those ideas may have been fringe way back when, but I think we can kind of track how in popular culture the things that were fringe are slowly brought in and slowly made acceptable. I'm thinking a lot about there was I'm not even going to say his name, but there was a white supremacist troll who was doing very well in 2016, and everybody was calling him a sexy new think tank, but he was just really like a Klansman without a robe. And then he was, everybody saw him for who he is. But a lot of the ideas that he was championing back in 2016 have made their way into policy. Have come into like the mainstream now. So like all the things that you're talking about with Warren Folks that seem to be extreme and far off now feel a little closer to, where we are today.
There were so many people that I spoke with who remembered him and had interactions with him, who said, yeah, everybody knew who Warren Folks was in the 60s and the 70s, less so in the 80s, but still, but that he would probably fit in with today's political landscape more than he did in his own. But, the thing is, it's called the Culture Wars of Warren Folks, and he came about in this particular era of the culture warrior politician. I was listening to you and Andrew, so much of what you said ties directly to what's happening in this book. And, Folks came about, George Wallace, famously, segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever, was first governor of Alabama from 63 to 67. Lester Maddox who made the axe handle the symbol of his successful campaign for governor, was governor from 67 to 71, and Claude Kirk, Florida's George Wallace or Lester Maddox, and maybe a prototype for somebody who's around today, was governor those same years, 67 to 71. This is when folks really came into his own and established this role as constant culture warrior.
Yeah. What were some of the other controversies that he started?
Oh man, he he went from one thing to another, but there were and some of the things are so extreme that they still read like, they're so ludicrous that
Yo, you got to give us one.
okay, yeah. So one of the more ludicrous ones was that there was an FDA seizure of apricot pits from a health food store in St. Augustine. And Warren folks did not like anything really that the government did. Anything the government did was government overreach. So he protested the seizure of these apricot pits, which some people thought could be a cure for cancer, but they actually contain cyanide. And he accused federal marshals of eating 400 and something pounds of apricot pits to hide the evidence. So that's one of the more ludicrous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But the first time that the mayor's office actually got security against the threat of gun violence was because of Warren Folks, because he would bring a gun anywhere into public that he could, and make a point of saying, if you have a problem with this, then you have a problem with my constitutional right. And he brought a shotgun into the mayor's office. And when the mayor's office put up security, he made the newspapers constantly. He made the newspapers doing a little victory march in front of the mayor's office.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he ran for governor in 1990. What are some of his campaign promises?
Oh man. Yeah. So he ran for multiple offices. He ran for sheriff. He ran for representative, senator, council member. He actually, in losing his Senate seat, he claimed that the election was stolen, and so again,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, again,
wow, losing election and saying it's stolen.
So many uncanny echoes.
That's crazy.
But his platform over the years rarely changed. It was always race based, and so interesting to hear you and Andrew talking about people with this idea that racism doesn't really exist anymore. I've read a few people lately who have said that the whole anti-woke thing is really anti-racism, as though if you say you are anti-racist, you are the one who's being...
You're the new version of what racism is.
Yeah.
It's like this weird reverse... It's literally like being a kid at elementary school and saying, "No, I'm not. You are."
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, but it's almost as though just saying that racism exists is offensive.
Yeah,
in and of itself. But race was always central to his platform. He argued for vouchers to send public school kids to private schools. He was always against taxation, always, gun rights. He was against teaching evolution in schools. In the late 80s and into the 90s, he started to focus a lot more on LGBT issues. And I just want to point out one real quick irony that I actually love.
Yeah.
So across from the Jesse Ball DuPont Center, is this old building. It's the United Cigar Store building. And in the late 60s, there was a George Wallace for President campaign office in that building, and then Warren Folks had his barber shop and, as he called it, Conservative Church of Christ in that building for a decade. And now there is a new gay bar opening there called Hardwick's, and I just love the irony of that.
So, can you tell us what you think the relevance of Warren Folks' legacy is today?
Yeah. Honestly, I wrestled a lot with whether to write this, how to write it. Sometimes in the midst of it, I would feel like this is really important because it has all of these hyperlinks to today. And sometimes I would feel like, am I just putting his poison back out there again? Does the community need this? And I don't think I would have written this book if the last couple of years hadn't happened. I teach at FSCJ. The last 3 years, I hosted our annual workshop for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the week before that workshop was to happen this year, and did happen, but the week before is when the governor started making his statements about DEI and shutting down DEI across Florida. So I think folks rose in this era, which was a racist backlash to civil rights progress, this era of the culture warrior politician, and we are in, we can make whatever prognostications about what might happen in the next couple of years, but we're in another era of that kind of politician.
So you've got an event coming up Thursday,
Yes.
September 14th. Tell me about it.
Yeah. It's at the Jacksonville Historical Society. Doors open at 5:30, and presentation starts at 6. It's the book launch, and so people can get tickets. I think you guys are putting the link on the site.
Yep.
So yeah, and so I'd love to have lots of people come out.
Tim Gilmore, The Cultural Wars of Warren Folks. He has a book launch happening on Thursday, September 14th. Go out and listen and hear all the connections to today. Tim, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Al.
And we